Mr. Ames, why are you dressed? Your monitor's been switched off. Telemetry suspended. Patient requested move. He never asked for this. My aunt arrives at 6. I won't let a walk-in keep this sweet. Cardiac procedure 2 days ago. He stays on telemetry. And who exactly are you?
The patient's stable. My judgment outranks yours.
His arrhythmia risk isn't minimal, doctor. No. I'm not moving a post-cardiac patient off monitoring for a room dispute. Put the wires back on. I've been written up by better.
The night nurse had learned to read a room by its silences, and this one, the corner suite of the Laurel Ames Pavilion, was wrong before she'd crossed the threshold. An old man sat on the edge of a made bed in a worn gray wool coat, his hands folded like a man, waiting for a bus that would not come. He was not supposed to be dressed. He was not supposed to be moving. 2 days out from a cardiac procedure, he was supposed to be lying still beneath the soft green glow of a monitor. His heart counted and watched. But the monitor was dark. The wires were coiled on the pillow like something set aside. And down the hall, a woman in pearls was telling everyone who would listen that she wanted him gone by morning. Cora Halstead had seen worse rooms than this. She had knelt in sand with her hands pressed to a stranger's wounds while the sky came apart above her. She had held boys together with gauze and prayer until the helicopter found them. That was another life. A life nobody at Ashwood Grace Medical Center knew about, because Cora did not tell it. She floated the night shift now, the nurse they called when a ward ran short, the one whose name people forgot by the elevator. She liked it that way. She had come to the coast, to Marisburg, to be quiet for a while, to be no one. But she knew a dark monitor when she saw one, and a dark monitor 2 days after a heart procedure was not quiet. It was a countdown. "Sir," she said gently, stepping into the room. "Mr. Ames, why are you dressed?" The old man looked up. His eyes were pale and kind and tired in the way that had nothing to do with sleep. "They tell me I'm being moved," he said. His voice was soft, worn smooth like the coat. "I didn't want to be trouble, so I got ready." On the windowsill, a child was asleep in the visitor's chair, knees drawn up, a paper cup of melted ice water gone warm beside her. 9 years old, maybe. Dark hair, a coat too big for her, the same gray wool. She slept the way children sleep when they have run out of things to be brave about. "That's my granddaughter," Walter Ames said, and something in his face softened and broke at once. "Lily. Her mother passed in the spring. It's just the two of us now. She won't sleep unless she can see me." He tried to smile. "I told her I'm fine." A man should be able to tell his granddaughter that and have it be true. Cora crossed to the monitor. She pressed the panel. Nothing. She checked the order screen on the wall terminal, and her stomach went cold and quiet. The old field cold. The one that meant pay attention now, feel later. The telemetry order was suspended, and beneath it, in the transfer notes, a single line, "Patient requested move to standard unit." She looked at the old man in his buttoned coat, at his folded hands, at the granddaughter asleep in the chair. "Mr. Ames," she said carefully, "did you ask to be moved?" He blinked. "No," he said. A young woman came in, very lovely, very upset. She said this room had been promised to her family. I told her I didn't want a fuss. He paused. "Is that the same thing?" It was not the same thing. It was the furthest thing in the world from the same thing. The woman in pearls was named Vivian Rourke, and by the time Cora reached the nurse's station, she had already made the hallway hers. She stood with one hand on the counter, as though she owned the counter, the wall, the light coming out of it. Her husband's family had pledged a fortune to Ashwood Grace, a whole surgical wing with their name promised to the granite. And Vivian Rourke had learned long ago that money spoke in a voice that did not need to be raised, though she raised it anyway. "I don't understand what's difficult about this," she was saying. "My aunt is arriving in the morning, and she is not going to convalesce in some ordinary room while a corner suite is occupied by a," she gestured vaguely down the hall, "by a walk-in. This wing is for donors. Everyone knows that. It's practically the arrangement." Behind the counter stood Diane Pruitt, the charge nurse, a woman with 20 years in these halls and a spine that bent whichever way the budget blew. She had the chart open in front of her. Cora watched her eyes move across it, watched her see it, the suspended telemetry, the recent procedure, the 2-day mark. Diane Pruitt saw the truth on that chart. Cora was certain of it, the way you are certain of a thing you will remember for years. And Diane Pruitt closed the chart. "Of course, Mrs. Rourke," she said. "We'll take care of it. Grant's already signing off." Grant Holloway was the VIP services director, a smooth young man who wore the hospital like a good suit. He appeared with a tablet and a smile that had never once been tested by anything real. "It's handled," he said. "Transfers coded. Rooms flipped by 6. Mister," he glanced down. "Ames is going to the 4th floor. Perfectly good beds up there." "He's post-procedure," Cora said. The hallway turned to look at her, the way a room turns to look at the person who has said the thing no one wanted said. "I'm sorry?" Grant Holloway said. "He had a cardiac procedure 2 days ago. He needs to be on telemetry. His monitoring order was suspended tonight, and I'd like to know who suspended it, because he is exactly the kind of patient who does not survive the 4th floor with nobody watching the numbers." Cora kept her voice level. She had learned long ago that panic was a language people used to dismiss you. She would not give them that. "Move him if you have to, but the monitor goes with him, and the order goes back on, and it needs to happen before he leaves this floor." Vivian Rourke laughed, a small bright sound. "And who are you?" "I'm the nurse who's on tonight," Cora said. "The night float," Diane Pruitt corrected, not unkindly, which was worse than unkindly. "Cora, honey, it's above your pay grade. Dr. Vane already cleared the transfer. Dr. Preston Vane. Of course he had." The attending cardiologist arrived a moment later as if summoned by his own name, crisp and unbothered, a man who had decided a long time ago that he was the smartest person in any room, and had never met evidence enough to change his mind. "The patient is stable," he said, without looking at Cora. "He's ambulatory, he's alert, he can spend the last night of his admission on a standard floor. I've made the call, it's a bed, not an operating theater." He signed Grant's tablet with a flourish. "Some of us have families waiting. Let's not turn a room swap into a hostage situation." "His arrhythmia risk," Cora began, "is minimal," Dr. Vane said, "in my professional judgment, which I believe outranks yours." There was a silence then, the specific silence of a hierarchy closing ranks. Cora looked at their faces one by one. Grant, who wanted the night to be easy. Diane, who wanted to keep her job. Vane, who wanted to be right. And Vivian Rourke, who simply wanted, and had never in her life been told no by anyone whose name mattered. Cora thought about the old man buttoning his coat so as not to be trouble. She thought about the child asleep in the chair who would wake and find the bed empty. "No," Cora said. The word landed in the hallway like a dropped tray. "I'm not moving a post-cardiac patient off monitoring in the middle of the night on a room dispute," she said. "If you want him moved, you can wait for morning rounds and a physician who'll put his name on the risk in daylight. Until then, the telemetry goes back on, and he stays where the wires reach. You'll be written up," Diane said quietly. "Then write me up," Cora said. "I've been written up by better." She went back down the hall. Behind her, she heard Vivian Rourke's voice climb toward the ceiling, heard Grant murmuring, heard Diane saying something about insubordination and the donor relationship and the Rourke pledge. She heard all of it the way you hear weather through a wall. She had made her choice. In the field, they teach you that the patient is the whole world and everyone else is noise. She had never unlearned it. In the corner suite, she reconnected the monitor with hands that did not shake. She peeled the leads, warmed them against her palm the way you did so they wouldn't startle old skin, and pressed them to the old man's chest. The green glow bloomed back to life. His heart drew itself in soft peaks across the screen. She watched 3 beats, 4, and something in the rhythm made her lean closer. There, a hitch, a stumble the width of a hair. To an untrained eye, nothing. To a woman who had counted 10,000 frightened hearts in the dark, a warning. "There," she murmured. I see you. You're kind, Walter Ames said. He had taken off his coat at last, folded it over his knees, and his hand rested on the pocket. Most people look at an old man in a worn coat and decide they already know the whole story. People decide a lot of things they don't know, Cora said. He smiled at that, a real one. You sound like my wife, Laurel. She used to say the measure of a person is how they treat the one who can't do a thing for them in return. His thumb moved over the wool of the pocket, back and forth, an old habit. She's been gone 4 years now. I still catch myself saving things to tell her. Cora adjusted his pillow. What's in the pocket? She asked, because he kept touching it, and because sometimes the kindest thing is to let a man show you the thing he's holding. He drew it out. A small medallion, brass gone soft gold with handling, worn nearly smooth. He turned it so she could see the shape stamped into it, a lamp, and around the rim, letters too faded to read in the low light. A keepsake, he said, from something I helped build, a long time ago. I keep it close, reminds me why. He closed his hand around it. Foolish, an old man and his pocket treasures. Not foolish, Cora said. She did not ask more. In her experience, the people worth knowing were the ones who did not announce themselves. She stepped out to chart, leaving the door open, leaving the monitor singing its quiet green song. And that was when she found June. June Okafor was the youngest nurse on the floor, barely a year out of school, the kind of earnest that the older staff either loved or wore down. She was standing at the corner of the station with her phone cupped in both hands, and her face was the face of someone who has seen a thing she is not sure she is allowed to have seen. I heard them, June whispered, before you came up. They changed the bedboard. Grant had me redo it, put Mrs. Rourke's aunt in the corner suite and Mr. Ames on 4, and he told me to backdate the transfer time so it'd look like it went through at shift change. She swallowed. I didn't feel right about it, so before I changed it, I took a picture. The original, with the timestamp. It shows his monitoring order still active, and it shows the room the way it really was. Her hands were trembling. Was that wrong? To keep it? Cora looked at the young nurse, at the fear and the stubborn decency fighting it out in her face, and felt something she had not felt in a long time. Recognition. Here was someone at the very start of the long, hard road of doing the right thing when it costs you, and she had chosen right on the first try, in the dark, with no one watching. No, Cora said softly. That was exactly right. Keep it safe. Don't delete it, no matter who tells you to. If you have ever sat beside someone in a hospital and prayed that just one person in the building would truly see them, then you already know why these stories matter. Stay with me. The night is not over. It was 2:15 when the old man's heart lost its rhythm. Cora was 3 doors down when the monitor's tone changed, and she knew before she reached the room, knew from the pitch of it the way a mother knows her own child's cry. She was through the door in 4 strides. On the screen, the neat green peaks had dissolved into a fast, chaotic scrawl, the heart quivering instead of beating, blood pooling instead of moving, ventricular arrhythmia, the thing Vane had called minimal, the thing that stole men away in unwatched beds on quiet floors. If he had been on the 4th floor, no one would have seen it in time. But he was here, and Cora Halstead did not have to think, because her hands already knew. She hit the call. She lowered the bed flat. She had the crash cart through the door and the pads on his chest, while the words came out of her calm and clear and absolutely certain. The voice from the other life. The field voice that had never once cracked no matter what the sky was doing. Lily woke in the chair, and Cora caught her eye for half a second. Look at me, she said to the child. Your grandpa's heart got scared, and I'm going to remind it how to beat. You hold that chair, and you count to 100 for me. Can you do that? And the girl, God bless her, nodded, and began to count in a whisper, 1, 2, 3, while the nurse prepared the equipment. The room filled with people, a code team, Diane, Vane, arriving with his tie loose and his certainty gone, and it was Cora's voice that ran it. Cora's read of the rhythm, Cora's hands that delivered the shock that caught the old man's heart mid-fall and set it back on its feet. On the screen, the wild scrawl steadied, stumbled, and found the peaks again. slow and then sure. Walter Ames drew a breath. His eyes opened, and the first thing he did, before anything else, was reach for his coat pocket. Dr. Preston Vane stood at the foot of the bed and did not say anything at all. There is nothing quite so silent as an arrogant man watching the ground he stood on turn out to be air. That was the scene the Chief of Staff walked into. Dr. Marcus Bell did his night walkthroughs the old way, on foot, alone, no entourage, because he believed you could not run a hospital you only saw in daylight. He had come up the back stairs and down the pavilion hall, drawn by the noise of a code winding down, and he stopped in the doorway of the corner suite and took in all of it at once. The recovering patient, the child counting under her breath, the night nurse still leaning over the bed with her hand on the old man's shoulder, and the coat, and the small brass medallion catching the light in the old man's open hand. Marcus Bell's face changed. He crossed the room slowly, as though the floor had become sacred, and he stopped beside the bed and looked down at the man in the worn gray coat, and his voice, when it came, was thick. "General Ames," he said. The word went through the room like a current. Behind him, Diane Pruitt's face went very still, the color leaving it slowly, and Grant Holloway's hand came off the tablet, as though it had turned hot. "I didn't. Nobody told me you were admitted under." Bell stopped, gathered himself, tried again. "Sir, it's an honor." He looked once around the room, at the walls, and everyone else looked with him, because they were beginning to understand. This is the Laurel Ames Pavilion, named for his wife. His foundation built this floor. His foundation funds half the charity beds in this building. He turned, and his gaze found the doorway where Vivian Rourke had appeared in her pearls with her mouth slightly open. This is the man whose name is on the cornerstone, and some of you were moving him to a hallway bed to make room for a donor's aunt. The medallion in Walter Ames's hand was a foundation medallion. The lamp stamped into the brass was the lamp of the Ames Foundation, and the faded letters around the rim were the ones he had chosen himself, years ago, in memory of Laurel, for those who cannot repay. He was not a walk-in. He was the reason the walls existed. "I didn't want a fuss," the old general said again, softly, almost apologizing. "A man shouldn't have to say his name to be treated like a person." His pale eyes found Cora. "She didn't know who I was. She fought for me anyway. That's the only kind of person worth being." Marcus Bell wanted names, and he got them. He got the suspended telemetry order and who had suspended it. He got the transfer falsely coded patient requested, and Grant Holloway's face went the color of ash as he understood that a signature was a permanent thing. He got Diane Pruitt's quiet, ruined admission that she had seen the truth on the chart and closed it. And when Vivian Rourke drew herself up and said the word pledge, said her husband's name, said surgical wing as though it were a weapon, Dr. Marcus Bell looked at her for a long moment. "Mrs. Rourke," he said, "a hospital that can be bought into endangering a patient is not a hospital worth donating to. Tell your husband we'll manage." And that was the end of the Rourke pledge, and no one in that room mourned it. But it was June Okafor who made it more than one nurse's word against the powerful. June came forward, small and terrified and absolutely unbending, and held out her phone with the time-stamped photo of the original bedboard, the monitoring order active, the room as it truly had been before anyone rewrote the record. Proof, in a perfectly clear image, of exactly what had been done and when. Marcus Bell looked at that photograph for a long time. "You kept this," he said, "knowing what it might cost you." "It was the truth," June said simply. "Somebody had to keep it." By morning, the story of the night had traveled the whole hospital, the way true things do. Dr. Preston Vane was relieved of his supervisory privileges pending review, and a man who had never once doubted himself was left to sit alone with the memory of the word minimal. Grant Holloway's signature followed him out the door. Diane Pruitt kept her job, but she would carry, for the rest of her career, the knowledge of the moment she had seen a patient in danger on a chart and decided a donor mattered more, and that knowing would follow her down every hallway for the rest of her days. And Walter Ames, the general nobody had bothered to see, recovered. His heart, once caught, held. He could have kept the suite for himself. Instead, on his last morning, he asked Cora to wheel him down to the emergency intake, where he had heard there was a young mother sitting up all night in a plastic chair with a boy of 6 burning with fever, a woman with no insurance and no room, and nothing but the will to stay awake beside her son. Walter Ames gave that mother his corner suite in the Laurel Ames Pavilion, the finest room in the building, and he paid for the boy's care himself, and he did it the way he did everything, quietly, so as not to be a fuss. He watched them settle the boy into the good bed, watched the mother's hand find her son's forehead, and for a long moment he said nothing at all, only sat in his chair with the medallion resting in his open palm and his eyes gone somewhere else, somewhere 4 years back, to a woman who would have wanted exactly this and would have hated to be thanked for it. Then he wiped his face with the heel of his hand, the way old men do when they think no one is watching, and he asked to be taken back upstairs. There he did one thing more. Before he left, he sat with his lawyer and Dr. Bell and Cora and June, and he endowed a fund with his wife's name on it, the Laurel Ames Fund for Night Nurses, for the ones who work in the dark when the powerful are asleep, the ones nobody thanks, the ones who stay. Because a hospital, he said, is not the granite over the door. It's whoever's awake at 2 in the morning, willing to say no to the whole world for the sake of one person who can't say it for himself. He turned to Cora then and pressed the little brass medallion into her palm and closed her fingers over it. For those who cannot repay, he read aloud, from memory, because the letters were too worn to see. Laurel chose those words. I never met anyone who lived them until last night. His old eyes shone. You didn't know I could give you anything. That's the only reason it means anything that you gave. Lily hugged her around the waist and would not let go for a long moment. And Cora, who had come to the coast to be no one, held the child and understood that she had been seen after all, by the 2 people it mattered most to be seen by. She kept the medallion in her own pocket after that. On the hard nights, the short-staffed nights, the nights when someone with money wanted something that would cost someone without it, she would put her hand in her pocket and feel the smooth, worn brass, warm from her body, and remember what it was for. And she would go and stand beside the one who could not move anyone at all, and she would not leave. These stories are made with love. If this one stayed with you, subscribe to the channel, and stay a while with the ones the world overlooks. That is all I ask.